So let's take a look at consecutive integer problems. So first of all, I want to make sure that you understand what they are. So the word consecutive just usually means things that are kind of one after the other. And then integers would be, positive and negative whole numbers. So consecutive integers would be things like -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, things like that. They come in the order. Consecutive generally meaning one right next to the other. Now in a minute we're going to talk about consecutive odd integers and consecutive even integers. But for right now, let's just talk about the fact that consecutive integers are just numbers that come one right after the next. All right, so the problems that are on this worksheet are considered easy. We are going to get to another sheet later in the week that would be harder. And there are other ways to do this, but again, the purpose of this is not to find the answer quickly. It's to learn the process, because in the ones that you'll see coming up, you cannot do it any other way other than the way I'm going to tell you right now. So while there are other ways to do this, I insist that you use my strategy because I know what's coming next. All right, so let's read through this problem. We're going to do problems 1, 3, 5, and 9 on these sheets. So find two consecutive integers whose sum is 45. Right, so it's asking us to find two numbers that are side by side, that are integers, and when we add them up, we get 45. Okay, so just like in our 6 pretty boxes problem, how we said the first thing we're going to do is say let x equal. The same thing here, except usually because they're integers, we use the letter n instead of x. So we're going to say let n equal the smaller of the two integers. Now you might want to shorten that, just say let n equal the smaller integer. That would be fine. So then what would be the second integer? So if n is the smaller of the two, what would the next integer be? So let's think about that for a second. Let's say the smaller integer were 6. What's the next integer? Right, hopefully you said 7, right? Because again, they're consecutive, so one right after the next. So if n was 6, how would we describe 7 in terms of n? So hopefully you thought it would be n plus 1. It's whatever this number is, add 1 to it. That gives us the next integer. So then we're going to write down here n plus 1 equals the larger integer. Okay, so then what do we know about them? We know that when we take and we add them up, we get 45. So we're going to say n plus 1. All right, first integer, second integer has to equal 45. And now we just have an easy algebra problem to solve. We're going to combine like terms, so n plus n is 2n, plus 1 is 45. We subtract 1 from both sides. I'm running out of room here, so I'm just going to do that in my head, and I get 2n equals 44. And then 2n equals 44. Let me bring that up here. I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I get n equals 22. So that means that the smaller of the two integers, which was n, is 22, and then the larger one, n plus 1, is 23. All right, and let's just check it out. If I add 22 and 23, do I get 45? Yes, I do. So those are the two integers that we're looking for. So then we would just answer the command in a sentence. The two integers are 44 and 45. Okay, hopefully that was pretty straightforward. Again, the n and the n plus 1 might feel a little bit weird at first, but hopefully as we do more of these, they'll get a little more comfortable. All right, number 3. Find 3 consecutive integers whose sum is 33. So This is very much like the last one, except this time it's asking us for 3 instead of 2. So same as before, our first step is going to be to define our variable. So let n equal the smallest integer, not variable. All right, so again, if we're thinking of our example of 6 being the smallest one, we want 3, so 6 would be the smallest, the next one would be 7, and the next one would be 8. So if we called this n, how would we describe 7 and 8 in terms of n? All right, so hopefully you remember from the last time that we just do, to get the 7, it's just the 6, the n plus 1. So the smallest integer, let's call this one the middle integer. And then the last one, so if this is n plus 1, or 1 more than 6, then we could describe 8 as 2 more than 6, or n plus 2. So n plus 2 equals the largest integer. Okay, then it tells us that the sum of those 3 has to add up to, the sum of those 3 is 33. So n plus 1 plus n plus 2, again, smallest, middle, largest. That has to equal 33. So when we add up all the n's, when we combine like terms, we get 3n plus 3 equals 33. Let me come up here again. 3n plus 3 equals 33. I subtract 3 from both sides. I get 3n equals 30. And I divide both sides by 3, and I get n equals 10. Okay, so then if n equals 10, and n was the smallest integer is 10. And then the next one would be 1 more than that, which would be 10 plus 1, or 11. And the next one is 1 more than that, but 2 more than the original, so n plus 2. So 10 plus 2 is 12. So 10, 11, and 12. And if we try that out, 10 plus 11 plus 12, we do get 33. All right, so the answer then to this question is the integers are 10, 11, and 12. Okay, let's look at, actually, let's see. Let me start a second video, just and then we'll do the ones, numbers 5 and 9.